Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. I found texts to my brother-in-law from my husband about our son's best friend's babysitter. Original post. I'm 35, my husband is 37. We have two sons 8 and 11. I recently got my hours switched, so I'm working afternoons, but luckily my in-laws watch them most days after school. But 2 days out of the school week, my husband goes into work early, so he can get out early and be home with them. When this began, he started making a point to do something fun with them every afternoon he's with them. Not always something big, sometimes just a fun activity at home, or going to play football at the park, a hike, etc. They always have a really good time. A lot of the time my kids tell me that my youngest son's best friend Oliver comes along. I just assumed that either Oliver's parents were coming, or my husband was watching all three of them. Today I was looking through some photos my older son took, and saw the same woman in a lot of them, talking to my husband. I asked my son who it was, and he said it was Oliver's babysitter, 25 female, and she comes with them regularly, as in, nearly every time. When I asked my husband why he didn't tell me about it, he seemed genuinely confused, and asked me who I thought was coming along, and I told him. He just shrugged, and was like, well, she's been coming. I asked for clarification on how often, and he was like, well, basically every time Oliver comes with us somewhere. I don't know exactly why, but I feel weird he didn't tell me about this. But he seems to genuinely taken aback that I didn't know or realize it. That I don't know if he's being genuine or just wants to act like it's not a big deal, so I don't act like it's a big deal. I've asked my sons, and they don't say much about her, other than her and dad talk a lot, and one of my sons talks about how she has pretty hands. I told my husband that I was kind of bothered by this, and he seemed kind of annoyed. He was like, I don't know what you expect me to do. She's the kid's babysitter, and our son insists on having the kid come with us, so she needs to come too. So I told him that was fine, but I just wanted to know about it. And he answered that he didn't get bothered when the boys had playdates, and the dads would come over and it would just be me or them, or when we needed drives to soccer practice and one of the dads drove us. He says he thinks me being bothered by this is just because he's a man. But I think it's more of the fact that it was something I had no idea about. I had no clue she was there coming with them, and only found out because of that picture I saw. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. It sounds like the pretty hands comment was something your son heard your husband say. What kid says stuff like that? It struck me as odd as well. I've never heard him say something like that. Give him the benefit of the doubt, but be cautious. My wife had an issue with a therapist I was seeing. I simply stopped going. It isn't a control thing, it's a respect thing. If something or somebody makes you uncomfortable, it's your husband's job to rectify the situation. If I were you, I'd tag along with your husband one day when you know she'll be present. This will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, establish some boundaries, and gauge their reactions. If your husband is hesitant in any regard to you meeting her, start investigating. I offered to invite her over for dinner, since I'd like to get to know her since she and the kids spend so much time together. And he said no. If your husband is telling the truth, inviting her out to dinner can seem odd. I'd just free up some time in your schedule and attend a playdate when you know Oliver will be present. This is not only within your rights as a parent, but if there's anything shady going on, the reactions to you adjusting your schedule may tell you all you need to know. Now for the first update. Hi, I posted yesterday where my husband didn't tell me that my son's best friend's babysitter was coming with them to nearly every single one of their outings. I was a bit upset by this because I had no idea who she was, that she was spending all of this time with them. I found out by looking through photos my son took of their most recent hike and seeing her there. My husband was acting really nonchalant about it, acting really surprised that I saw anything odd about it. He immediately dropped the issue, but I wasn't sure if he wasn't making it a big deal, so I didn't make it a big deal. He was acting completely normal last night, and then as I was cleaning up the kitchen, I overheard him talking to his friend from his office. I had the kitchen window open and he must have opened up his office window. I overheard him saying how he thinks he's all good now, he thinks she's dropped it. That was the only thing I heard, and I assumed I was the she he was talking about. I know it was nothing damning, but between the situation of him not telling me about the babysitter and then this, I had my suspicions way up. This morning I went through his phone. I know it wasn't the right thing to do, but I just had such a bad gut feeling. I did find her in his phone, but all of the messages with the exception of one that was sent this morning, and she's asking if he has the boys today or not. But I did find messages about her between him and his brother, talking about her. My husband absolutely gushes about her, like an obsessed little boy. He says how funny and amazing she is, how beautiful her eyes are, how much he loves her laugh. There's one point where he says that he thinks one of our sons has a crush on her, and his brother replied something along the lines of, "Can't imagine where he gets that from, it must run in the family." I'm completely crushed. I didn't talk to him about any of this yet, because I barely spoke to him at all this morning before he left for work. I don't know if I should confront him or Leia or his brother, or if I should just pack my stuff and go. The text from the babysitter is odd too. Why would she ask if he has the boys today? Does she not know y'all are together raising your son so he has access to the boys every day? It's a weird phrasing to me. If she was setting up a playdate with the boys, she would ask differently. Have you talked to Oliver's mom about this inappropriate behavior? He doesn't watch the boys every afternoon, only twice a week. Usually he's working. No, I haven't spoken to his mother yet. But if she was only trying to set up a play date, wouldn't she ask if the boys were available? Not if he has the boys. If everything was innocent, the play dates would be set up, even when he didn't have the boys. As others have suggested, try to meet them today at the park just to see their reactions. But I think Oliver's mom needs to be made aware, and let her babysitter know that all play dates need to be set up between the parents. It's inappropriate for the babysitter and your husband to have any communication. Please, for the love of God, show up to one of their meetings. Just pop up and be like, "I'm so glad I finally get to meet you." And be nice to this woman. If she acts weird or hateful towards you, then you've got big issues. After that, have a calm sit-down talk with your husband about the amount of time he's spending with her and tell him it needs to stop. Personally, I think he's cheating. Deleting text messages is so freaking fishy. If he refuses to stop seeing her, then you need to be prepared to start the divorce process. I'm definitely considering doing this. OP, I wouldn't go join them. I'd go watch them. You have a perfect opportunity to watch from afar and see how they act around each other while you're not there. You can even record what you see so he can't gaslight you about it later when confronted. If you do see suspect behavior between them, sitting too close to each other, touching each other, acting in a too familiar way with each other, it may be only on his end or the both of them, but you'll know either way. Let's face it, they're gonna be on their best behavior if you go walking up and join them. You'll also be giving them a big heads up that you're truly onto them. They're not gonna do anything in front of you when he already knows you're suspicious, and they'll act accordingly. They may have already had the talk about what to do and say if confronted by you. Were the messages between him and her deleted? If the messages were deleted, red flags. By the way, he was lying by omission. Red flags. He messaging her. Red flags. He having a crush on her. Red flags. His brother knows and seems to be playing wingman instead of setting him straight. Red flags. I would be heartbroken. Yes, I'm assuming the messages were deleted last night. There was only one message from her on his phone. It had been sent this morning. Now for the second update. Sorry I didn't update sooner. It's been a long, awful night. I got out of work early and went to the park, and they were there. When I got there, I saw she was wearing one of my husband's hoodies, and that's when I basically knew everything I thought was confirmed. It was a hoodie that he had bought on a vacation we had gone to as a family. I don't know why, but that's still the thing that I keep going back to, is that she was wearing his hoodie. As I was driving up to the park, I was watching them. And if you didn't know them or who they were, you would have thought they were one big family. That's how they were interacting. It honestly made me sick seeing how familiar she was with my husband and my kids when I didn't even know who she was. I watched them for a minute, and then I saw my husband put his hand around her waist, literally right there in front of our kids, and I saw red. When I went into the park, my oldest son saw me first and said something to my husband. He walked over to me and asked me if I really left work early to come spy on him. And I told him yes I did, and I was glad I did, because I saw him playing happy family with my kids and a random woman. And he told me I was overreacting, that they were playing in the park. He had put his hand on her waist to steady her because she was about to fall, and she was wearing his hoodie because it was unexpectedly cold out. Everything he had an answer for. At some point, Leia came over and said it was clearly not a good time, and that she was going to take Oliver home. I said something along the lines of, "You're wearing my husband's hoodie and playing with my kids, and you're not even going to introduce yourself to me." And right in front of her, my husband flipped out on me and called me rude, telling me that this is exactly why he hadn't introduced me to Leia. And then goes to her, "This is what I deal with every freaking day." She just looked at me and told me her name, and then told my husband she'd talk to him later, and went to go get Oliver. At this point, our boys came back over and asked why Oliver and Leia were leaving, and my husband just told them to get in the car and told me we'd talk about it more at home. When we got there, he flipped out on me. He told me that I had embarrassed him and the boys, and of course they defended him 100% and were completely upset at me that I had made Oliver leave and them come home early. I told him that if he wasn't going to act trustworthy, like hiding what he was doing or with who, deleting texts, being touchy-feely with another woman, then I wasn't going to treat him with trust. I told him I didn't trust him because it seemed like he had feelings for Leia and was trying to hide it from me. That's when he really lost it, and he told me that yes, he has feelings for her. How could he not? Look at the way I treated him. I asked him for clarification. How deep were his feelings for Leia? He wouldn't answer, so I asked him if he'd ever done anything with her, and he said yeah, they kissed a few weeks back, and he was still trying to process all of it and how he felt about her. I lost it and started yelling at him. He didn't even try to defend himself, but once I started calling her names, he told me to shut up and keep her out of it. Anytime I said something bad about her, he flipped out on me, and I think that's what hurt the most was him not caring at all about my feelings or anything like that. But whenever I would say things that were true, like how she was a home wrecker or anything, he suddenly becomes all gallant about defending her honor. Right now I'm staying with my sister since my sons don't want anything to do with me, along with my husband. I'm going to go back over there today while the boys are at practice. Now for more advice before reading the last update. He's the one doing you wrong, but somehow you're the one with the issues. Your husband's tactic is deflect, deflect, deflect. Call a lawyer, remove your important documents and valuables, keep your head held high. You're being gaslighted. Get an aggressive lawyer. I recommend getting a woman. Freeze your account so he can't be moving money. Stay with the boys. If you leave, you may lose custody because of abandonment. Good luck. Sickening. Step 1. Take half of the money in your account and put it in a separate one. Do it this morning. Step 2. Secure your credit cards. Step 3. Talk to a lawyer. After that, I would sit your boys down and explain to them that Daddy and Ms. Babysitter did something to really hurt Mommy, in a kid-friendly way to help them understand what's happening. I would also reach out to their friend's mom and see if you could set up a play date when the parents are off work. Hopefully you can work to repair your relationship with your sons. It would be very difficult for you to ever trust your husband again, especially after neither him nor the babysitter is showing remorse for their actions. When reaching out to the friend's parents, I'd also be very explicit about what is happening. I feel like most parents would be interested to know that their babysitter is using their kid as a cover to cheat with a married man while also getting paid. As a parent, I concur. I would not want this woman taking my kids out along with her married boyfriend. Get back in the house. If there's someone who needs to leave, that's your husband. He's the one who destroyed the family. Tell also the parents who hired Leia. Tell your kids the truth. They will understand why you don't want her anymore near them. Do not wait for your husband to decide who he wants to stay with. Decide for the family and what's best for you. Remember that you don't need to stay with him for the children. If your brother-in-law has a partner, also tell them that he is okay with cheating since he helped your husband do it. I know it's petty, but I would mess up all of their lives. Yeah, brother-in-law's wife deserves to know that this is within brother-in-law's moral code. Now for the latest update. Thank you to everyone for your kind words of advice and support. This isn't a situation a few days ago I ever dreamed I would be in. I haven't slept more than 4 hours since all of this started, and I feel completely numb and empty. I went back home yesterday and my husband was there, since my in-laws had taken the kids to practice. I told him I had a lot of questions, and I just wanted him to answer honestly. I asked him if he wanted to be married to me, and he answered honestly and said no. I asked him how long he had been in love with Leia, and he had said for a few months. I asked him if he was ever going to tell me, and he said that he was, but he didn't know when the best time would be. I asked if they had slept together, and he said no, they had only kissed, but he wasn't very convincing when he said that. I asked if or what the boys knew, and he said he didn't think our youngest knows anything, but that our oldest son might have noticed some things and might have an idea what's going on. He's going to be living in the apartment we have in the basement. I'm going to speak to a lawyer on Monday and preemptively put myself and the kids in therapy. I made him show me all messages that he had screenshots of, and he showed them to me. They were hidden in a folder within a folder in his email, so even if I went through his phone, I wouldn't have found them unless I knew exactly where to look. This wasn't just a physical affair. He has deep feelings for her. I think the hardest part for me is the fact that our sons were involved. That's the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around. Again, thanks for all of the words of encouragement and support. I'm sorry if I forgot anything. Your husband is a fool. He's infatuated with her, but he does not know her. What he knows is that she's okay breaking up a family. She has no real income or wealth. She thinks she's stepping up financially. The reality is much different. I predict that once she realizes he's a loser with no extra money, she'll dump him. He will come crawling back someday, so be prepared for that. In the meantime, your response is the same whether you want to divorce or reconcile. 1. Zero tolerance for his behavior. 2. File for divorce immediately. 3. Do not cry in front of him. I know it's hard, but he sees tears as weakness. Nothing will shock him more than you being strong, like you care less, and moving on without him. 4. See a doctor for help sleeping and mood swings. 5. Drink lots of water and hit the gym. 6. Do things just for you. Hair, clothes, new hobby. What was Oliver's mother's reaction to the situation? She said she was very sorry to hear about it, and that she had noticed the two of them spending a lot of time together. Is she going to fire Leia? No, I don't think she is. Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Update. My 32 male fiancé, 29 female, got breast enhancement surgery and I am no longer attracted to her. Original post. As the title says, my girlfriend and fiancé of 2.5 years recently got enhancement surgery. She had been saying she wanted to do it ever since we first began dating. And while I expressed to her I didn't think it was necessary as I loved the way she looked before, I always said I would support whatever decision she made, because it is her body and she's the one who has to live in it. About a year ago, her mother died after a long battle with cancer, in which she actually went into remission after a double mastectomy, but then the cancer eventually came back and metastasized to her pancreas. It was a horribly painful and unpleasant experience for everyone in her family. I had met my girlfriend after her mom went into remission and after the surgery, so I wasn't there with her for the first battle, which from what I've heard was very traumatic and painful in its own way. When her mother passed, she inherited a fairly large sum of money. Nothing crazy, but enough to put a down payment on a house and finally pay for the surgery she wanted. When she told me she had made the appointment to meet with a plastic surgeon, I was supportive, but again reinforced that I loved the way she looked now, and suggested that maybe her desire to do this now was connected to her grief with her mother passing. She pretty much dismissed that notion, since she said she'd wanted to get implants since she was in high school before her mom ever had cancer or the mastectomy. Fair enough. Fast forward about 6 months ago to the surgery, and it goes off without a hitch. Because she was recovering for about a month or so, I didn't really see the finished product right away, and then when I did, they were much bigger than I had expected. She told me that there was still swelling, and that would go down and it would look more natural. And the swelling did go down, but they've never really looked natural to me. Maybe because I was just so accustomed to the way they looked before the surgery, that I am having trouble seeing them any other way. For the past few months, our intimate life has been okay, but it definitely has dwindled a bit. We couldn't really do it while she was recovering, and after she was feeling up to it, we overcompensated a bit by having lots of activities. But it was still before I had an idea what they looked like, since when we do it, she would still be in a sports bra and our baggy t-shirt that stayed on during. And I was very cautious not to grab at them or anything, since they were still tender for so long after. Eventually she completely recovered, and immediately I wasn't thrilled, but I lied and said I thought they looked great. Thing is, I don't hate them or anything. The part where I started losing attraction to her has been that since she got the surgery, she gets a lot more attention from random strangers, which I've never minded. She got attention from strangers in the past too. She's a beautiful woman now and before. But since the surgery, she seems so much more receptive to the attention that it's just become a total turn off for me. I didn't initially bring it up because I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, and even if I wasn't, it would likely be regarded that way and dismissed either way. But eventually I started to make little comments here and there when she would flirt back with the delivery guy or whatever. Nothing terrible, but like not sure he needs a tip after all, or something. She got annoyed, and eventually I did bring up my discomfort, and she did what I assumed she would, which was accusing me of being paranoid and reading into things, and saying that what I thought was happening was not. And then a couple of weeks ago, I found out that while out with her girlfriends, she was convinced to enter a wet t-shirt contest. A friend of mine happened to be at the bar they were at, and just sent me a text telling me how great my girlfriend's babies looked. He was joking, and later said he framed it that way because he was uncomfortable letting me know, but knew he needed to let me know in case I wasn't aware. When I confronted her about it, she didn't understand why I was upset, which is just symptomatic of this entire personality change she seems to have undergone since the procedure. I tried to explain that if she had told me that was happening, I probably would have been fine, but the secrecy and just her general dismissiveness of my concerns and enjoying the extra attention was hurtful. She seemed to think that because she won the wet t-shirt contest, that I should just be okay with it, and that I am lucky to have her. This simply isn't the person I fell in love with. I know I might be overreacting a bit, but I didn't love how the surgery turned out to begin with, and now this entire personality shift has been jarring enough to make me lose interest in being intimate with her at all. For the past 2 weeks, we've only did it 2 times, and I've even had to reject her advances. I tried to be as nice as possible, but when I tell her I am not in the mood now, she gets very angry and frustrated, and kind of throws mini tantrums, also very new. Like she thinks she's doing me a favor by even wanting to do it with me, and I am now somehow ungrateful. I've had some of my friends, male and female alike, mimic this kind of sentiment when I've tried to discuss it, hence bringing it to Reddit. I believe the person I fell in love with is still in there somewhere, but I might just be kidding myself. I am at the point where I want to suggest couples counseling, but the one time I remotely touched on the subject, she was not receptive to the idea. I don't know what else to do though. She's like a completely different person now, and I don't know that I like that person very much. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. She said that I was lucky to have her. She was doing me a favor by wanting to sleep with me. Oh hell nah, F that noise. She's getting more and more full of herself, especially with the attention of others. I've read many stories like this, and let me tell you, it never ends well. My advice: break up. You guys clearly aren't compatible anymore, and eventually you'll start resenting each other. End it now before it gets worse. 100% this. She doesn't see OP as an equal anymore, which is a recipe for long-term disaster. You should move on. You are no longer compatible. Sucks, but it is what it is. You aren't going to change her back now, and it's okay to not like the person she has become. Move on. If you want to salvage what you had, you should go to counseling together, but it'll only work if she's on board. If not, then she's made her choice, and now it's time for you to make yours. You owe it to her, after 2.5 years together, to discuss first before making a decision. Write down everything you want to say to her, and make sure she understands that while she may dismiss your concerns, they are still valid to you. Make sure she understands that it's her attitude and actions that are pushing you away, not necessarily the implants. Good luck, sir. I agree with having a talk with her, even if will likely be futile. She will likely refuse to see the problem or consider therapy and lose him. She'll likely rationalize it as he is just insecure and jealous now ever since her glow-up, and she's better off without him. But it may still be worth trying. Now for the first update. First, I want to thank everyone for their helpful and reassuring insight. After the post, I was still uncertain as to what to do. I didn't want to spring anything on her, as I felt that from her perspective, it might seem like my frustrations and concerns were coming out of nowhere unless she first provoked something. I didn't want to bring up the past after as much time had already gone by, because it felt petty of me to do so. I guess what I didn't realize at the time is I had become pretty distant and terse with her, which she brought up pretty quickly, as well as the fact that I was no longer initiating intimacy with her and completely unreceptive to any advances she made. I told her flat out that I felt her personality had completely changed, and I was having a lot of second thoughts about the relationship. She got very upset and asked me why I'd not mentioned anything. I told her that I had tried to multiple times, and she was completely dismissive of it and accusing me of being jealous or paranoid. I asked her when have I ever been either of those things throughout our relationship, and she had to admit that I have never been a jealous or paranoid person in the past. While she admitted that, she still said that she felt her personality was still the same, and that while she may not know the reason for my perception, it was still wrong. She apologized for accusing me of being jealous, but said I'm wrong. It was weird because it felt like it suddenly got turned on me, and that it was somehow all on me. I was pretty stunned and felt like again she was being dismissive of my point of view. She said she didn't know what else to say. We agreed to put a pin in it for the night, as I was kind of speechless, and talking to her felt a bit like talking to a wall anyhow. That night she tried to initiate again, and I said no, and kind of snapped at her. I was quite flummoxed and said something to the effect, "Wow, you didn't hear a freaking word I said tonight, did you?" And apparently that broke her. She became so aggressive and hostile in a way I had never experienced before. She was hysterical, screaming, thrashing, throwing the pillows and bedding around wildly. Knocked over a lamp that broke, and that didn't even slow her down. Then she started pushing me, telling me to get the heck out, and that she never wanted to see me again. At first I was resistant, pleading with her to calm down, but she was just getting more and more aggressive, so I just grabbed my wallet and keys and ran out to my car in my socks and boxers. I could still hear her slamming doors from inside of my car outside of our house. Her house. I just drove around all night thinking. I was shaking. I was genuinely scared. I was angry. I think I was in shock. I didn't have my phone, so I couldn't call a friend or my parents to go to their house, and I didn't want to show up in the middle of the night under these circumstances anyway. I just drove around all night and didn't sleep. I waited until about 8 in the morning to go back to the house, which was around when she would leave to work. But her car was still there, so I drove and got breakfast and coffee at a drive-thru, and when I came back an hour later, she had eventually left. By this point, I am feeling pretty calm. I go inside to grab some of my things, and the entire living room is just a mess. Chairs tipped over, the coffee table completely shifted out of place, a plant ripped from a pot with dirt everywhere. You can tell she tried to clean it up a little, but didn't get very far. I went to our bedroom where my phone and clothes were, and in the middle of the hallway on the way to the bedroom was a pile of all my things, including my phone, which had a broken screen. Fortunately, it was still functioning, so I called into work and spent the next 4 to 5 hours packing up a bunch of my stuff and loading it into my car. I also called a friend of mine and drove over to his house. He said I could crash with him for a bit while I figure out what to do next. Later that day, I sent her text saying we should talk, and she responded there was nothing to talk about, and that she thinks it would be better for both of us if I find somewhere else to stay for the time being. I explained that I already had done so and was staying with my friend, and then she went radio silent. She didn't respond to that or any follow-up texts I sent. About a week after all of this, she sent me a text that simply said I need to figure out a time to come and pick up the rest of my things. I asked if she would be there so we could talk, and she said she had nothing to say to me, and I should come get the rest of my things when she isn't there. So, I tried calling her and she didn't answer. I sent her a text, asking her if she was just done with us then, and she said yes. I thought I made that clear. Which maybe she did. I thought it was just an episode and we would at least talk. Later that week, I went picked up the rest of my things and sent a text saying I left my keys on the counter. She said she was getting the locks changed anyway. I've known this woman for nearly 3 years, and all of this along the way is new. She was always communicative and rarely hostile. She might pout or be passive-aggressive, but this felt like a full-blown tantrum. She was seething like a feral animal or something. She was completely unapologetic and calculatingly cold, in a way she'd never been before. A few weeks later, after moving into my own apartment, I found out that she was already seeing someone new. I don't know if she started seeing him while we were together. It wouldn't shock me. At some point in the last year, she stopped respecting me. And when I think back, there were probably signs before the surgery. Maybe even wanting to get the surgery. I don't know. The whole thing feels like such a blur. I think I may have been in denial for a while. Maybe I am just telling myself that now, to feel better about it. I have not heard from her in weeks, and I have not tried to contact her on my end either. I did receive a missed call from her in the middle of the night about a week ago, but there was no message or text, and I didn't bother following up to see what she wanted. I'm not ready to speak with her again. I don't know when or if I'll ever be. The last couple of weeks with her and after the big blow up were the worst days of my life. I've never felt so meaningless or disregarded, and she was the person who I trusted most in the world, at one point. Anyway, sorry this isn't a more positive update, but a few people had asked. I would have posted it sooner, but it's taken me a while to be comfortable talking about what happened. I still get upset thinking about it. I am hoping writing it out would help, but honestly, I am just sad and upset again right now. Fortunately, I have my whole life ahead of me, and I am fortunate in that I still have plenty going for me. I definitely feel more cynical now than I did before. Which sucks, hoping that passes. Here's my take on why she flipped out on you. She has had some personal insecurities for quite a while, hence why she wanted the breast augmentation. After what to her was a great success with the surgery results, she imagined that she would be even more desirable. According to your post, it seems that she did get a lot of that attention that she was craving, but from other people, not from you. When it all came out and you explained what to her seemed unimaginable, that the results of her surgery, both how they look and her personality shift, were unattractive to you, her self-esteem came crashing down to a low it has never seen before. Even with the surgery, she was still not desirable enough. All the insecurities came rushing back and magnified, so she lashed out at you and cut you off as a way to cope with her own pain. Basically, hurt people hurt people. Anyway, sorry this isn't a more positive update. After reading your previous post, the end result is actually pretty positive to me. You had mentioned in your previous post if the woman you fell in love with was still inside somewhere. And to be honest, my first thought was that the woman who was inside had actually now broken free, and the woman you fell in love with is long gone. I'm sorry this took the path it took, but I think that in the long run, you are far better off knowing now than down the road and 10 years into an unhappy marriage. You do have your whole life ahead of you. And don't worry about the cynicism. It's not as false as you think. Even those of us commenting have our own motives for doing so, whether it's fishing for karma, hoping to get noticed by an OP, or simply using stories and on here to try to improve our own relationships. Everyone has their own reasons for anything they do. It's a matter of deciding whether or not you're okay with that. Things will get better. You've dodged an obviously psychotic bullet here. I don't know if she started seeing him while we were together. I don't think anyone would be surprised by this either. She will have a ton of attention from guys that only care about her babies and nothing otherwise. Once she gets tired of being used and wants something actually fulfilling, she will be upset that there are no good men left that will give her a second look. Now for the final update. I can't imagine many people care, but I got a lot of private requests for an update, so here it is for those who care. My ex and I are now friends. She actually finally got into therapy and has really been more like the person I thought I knew. She said she realized that she was acting out because her mom died, which I tried to discuss with her, and also there were some issues in our relationship I was unaware of, which admittedly I did not try to discuss because I was unaware of them. She expressed to me that because of my personality, which is pretty even-keeled and placid, it can come off as indifferent or even judging. For a while she was feeling like I didn't find her attractive anymore, which was pretty surprising to me because I always made an effort to let her know how gorgeous I thought she was, but I guess my behavior didn't always convey it even if my words did. Which is on me and something I have discussed in therapy, being more enthusiastic or letting people know how much I appreciate them and catering it to them specifically, individually. And her therapist helped her realize a lot of what she was going through, which was nice because she essentially said that she forgave me for her reading into, essentially, way that I am, and turning it into a negative, as opposed to it just being that way that I am, and in no way a reflection of her or how I felt about her. And I believed her, and I apologized for not making her feel as beautiful as I think she is, and generally not being a more present partner. She also apologized for her behavior after her mom died. She actually admitted she was trying to make me jealous, and when it didn't work, she went temporarily insane. She said she felt like she lost me before her mom died. But because we never talked about it, after her mom died, she started acting out and feeling kind of desperate and lost control. I am so grateful for her honesty. I thought I had been going crazy. Ultimately though, neither one of us has a desire to jump back into a relationship with the other. She had brought it up passively as something down the road and in the future, but when I kind of remained silent, she asked if that was something I was hoping for. And I had to be honest, it wasn't. I love her, but the person I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore. I can't see her the same way, and I am quite frankly not in love with the person she is now. Even with everything she is saying, her previous behavior is hard to let go of, let alone ignore entirely. She agreed with me. What a relief. We love each other, but both feel like we both need time away from each other and figuring out who we are, and now we can at least be friends. I thought I lost my best friend, and I thought because of all of this that it was gone forever. But I got my best friend back. We're not best friends anymore in the way we were, but when faced with alternative it's almost better, because I missed her friendship more than anything, long before everything fell apart. Anyway, things are positive, but there's no hate or animosity. I feel terrible for what I put her through. But as my therapist reminds me, it wasn't intentional. At the end of the day, you are only yourself, and people have a choice to live with it or not. He's helped me a ton. Thanks. It honestly sounds like she's still putting way too much blame on you. I mean, she went full psycho and broke your things and tore up the house. After you came to get your stuff, she changed the locks and started seeing someone else. You need a lot more therapy if you think that woman should be in your life even as a friend. Talk about someone you keep at arm's length. Agreed. Unless I am reading it wrong, she forgave him for her misunderstanding him and seeing his traits as a negative. Madness. At some point in the future, you will come to realize she is still blaming you for far more of the responsibility for the failure of the relationship than you deserve, because she refuses to face her own fears and craziness. All the misunderstandings in the relationship have become your fault. While she acknowledges her own irrational behavior and stupidity, the gray areas have been attributed to you. She's forgiven you for her misinterpreting your character as being insouciance. What the heck is that about? Why should you need forgiving for being you, and her deciding that means you don't like her? At the end of the day, her oft-repeated sin was that she wouldn't talk to you, would ascribe whatever attitude and intentions she felt best applied to your thoughts and actions, and then treated you as though her assumptions were fact. She just repeatedly let her insecurities do your talking for you, and flat out became a flirty exhibitionist to try and prove that she was right. This friendship will not last. She will continue to blame you for her failings, and you already lost your friend when she turned into someone else. Your expectations that you have your friend back are likely based on you thinking she has the power to blame herself when she clearly, even under therapy, doesn't.